Okay, this is Ben Motyka doing my speech, COMS 101, persuasive speech. This is my audience here. I have Chaplain Almas, Chaplain Jackson, Special Smith, and Specialist Zapata. They're soldiers that I work with, and they were nice enough to hear my speech. And I'm going to turn it over to Chaplain Almas. He's going to record me. Good, sir?
We're good.
Okay. So, thank you for joining me today for my speech. I'm going to be talking about sexual assault and harassment, and hopefully at the end of my speech I will be able to persuade you to see how the Army Chaplain Corps can make a difference in those things within the military. So imagine with me, if you will, it's a Saturday night, barracks, it's late, everyone's drinking, everyone is gathered on the second floor, and they're having one of those great, wonderful barracks parties that we all hear about on the weekends. It's the usual party scene. There's dancing, there's music, alcohol. Soldiers are drinking, and they're just kind of relaxing from this long work week that they've had. Private Jane Doe is dancing. She's by herself. She's enjoying the music. She's relaxing. She's having a good time. She's had a few drinks. Nothing too bad, nothing too strong. In her mind, she doesn't think that she's become intoxicated. She's not bad or anything. And all of a sudden, while she's dancing, Specialist John Smith comes up to her and tries to dance too close to her. He starts putting his hands on her, he starts groping her, all those sort of things. Visibly upset, Private Doe decides to leave this party. She goes up to her room by herself, and little does she know, Specialist Smith has been drinking excessively and feels a little bit burned and a little bit angry that she decided to blow him off at this dance party. He follows her up to her room. Long story short, he follows her, he goes into the room behind her, and he does the absolutely unthinkable, most terrible thing you could think of. He rapes her. When he leaves the assault, he leaves the area, he leaves Private Doe with an entire new world of problems and an entire new universe of struggles and things that she has to work on. In my speech today, I'm going to be briefly discussing the seriousness of sexual assault and harassment within the military. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Army as sort of a pinpointed area. Within my speech, I'm going to be making three main points. The first point is going to show the statistical seriousness of sexual assault and harassment within our military. The second point of my speech is going to talk about the overall moral conduct of soldiers and kind of how the Army has addressed this issue of morality within our ranks itself. And thirdly, I'm going to be trying to persuade the audience to understand the role that the Chaplain Corps could play in implementing morals and ethics training for soldiers so that these types of things don't happen. The Christian Science Monitor had this to say in an online news article, and I'm quoting the Defense Secretary Leon Panetta in this article. He said, and I quote, "Even in the face of increasing rates of rape and aggravated assault in the military, Mr. Panetta emphasized that we assume this is a very underreported crime, and that incidents of sexual assault are roughly 6 times as high as reports of the crime. Last year, there were 3,191 reports of sexual assault throughout the U.S. military. But Panetta said that realistically, the estimate for assaults actually is closer to 19,000. This article was published in 2012, just as a side note. It's no secret that sexual assault and harassment is a serious problem within our military. The military, and more specifically the Army itself, conduct regular sexual prevention and assault training for our soldiers to try to influence them, but also try to make the soldiers aware that this kind of stuff does happen, unfortunately. The soldier who is victimized by the sexual assault ultimately faces a pantheon of problems: mental, emotional, physical problems. All of that stuff kind of gets tied into it. The Army has done a great job in recognizing sexual assault as a problem, and in that recognition of the problem, they've done a great job in establishing different programs and such to try to address this problem. The Army established what's called the SHARP program, or the Sexual Harassment, Assault, and Response and Prevention program, which essentially establishes different representatives within each unit to help and assist soldiers who have been victimized with assault. These representatives are known as SARCs, or they are Sexual Assault Response Coordinators. And essentially they receive training on how to help soldiers and assist soldiers who have been victimized with sexual assault and harassment. As a side note, as a matter of fact, in our chapel down here, we're actually doing a SHARP representative training as of right now. So as you can see, they are actively engaging this problem. So we can see from all of this information that the Army specifically is doing a great job in trying to address this problem and the seriousness of it within our ranks. However, in my opinion, in looking at this problem, I have to say that I think that this program, SHARP, all of the things of that, seem to be more of a reactionary measure. There's prevention involved in it, yes, but a lot of the training tends to focus itself around what do we do after the fact? What do we do after the soldier or the military member has been assaulted and had this problem? So the question remains for me, how do we prevent sexual assault in our ranks? The Army in 2001 established a new system for training its initial entry soldiers. Realizing that the norms of culture have changed and that the more traditional values that were prevalent in early American culture and history, they've been slowly changing. The Army essentially recognized that we are getting soldiers and recruits coming into our Army who don't necessarily have a good conceived, good understanding of foundation of what is right and what is wrong. So roughly they started to instill these values. The United States Army posture statement of FY 2001 has this to say about it. The Army's 7 core values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage is the process of embracing and living by these values begins in basic training and continues throughout a soldier's life. For the Army to be effective, the importance of a common framework of values cannot be overstated. It demands programs and initiatives such as the Human Relations Action Plan, Character Development, and the Consideration of Others program, designed to inspire soldiers to live in accordance with these values today and to apply them as leaders of our Army tomorrow. So the Army's done great things in trying to implement values. They've done a lot of good things in trying to help soldiers understand a good value system and how they should live and how they should treat other people. In the response to my previous question, how do we prevent sexual assault within our ranks, I believe that the answer lies in the Army Chaplain Corps. The United States Army Chaplain Corps, by its very virtue and occupation, has within itself values, ethics, and a God-centered understanding of morality and how it impacts the human condition, mental, emotional, so on and so forth. Roughly paraphrasing the Apostle Paul, I think it's interesting how he says in the scriptures that, like I said, roughly paraphrasing, I did not know what sin was until I knew the law. Or maybe a better way we could understand it is, he did not know right and wrong until God showed him what that was. I think Army chaplains can play a very great role in dealing with morality and ethics in general. And a lot of people, a lot of soldiers come into the military and don't necessarily have a foundation of anything to go by. Some of them have faith, some of them don't. And although the faith piece doesn't really play a part in it too much for some people who don't have faith, there's still an overall morality and ethics that could be put into play here. And I believe the Army Chaplain Corps could do that. I believe that the Army chaplains, in conjunction with the 7 Army values, could help defeat the evil that is sexual assault. I believe that leaders in the Army would establish regular ethics and morality training for the troops, that the soldiers themselves could get a good understanding of what is right and what is wrong, what is considered good behavior, what is not considered good behavior. And ultimately understanding that the way we treat others, the way we work with other people, all of these things matter in the scheme of our life and how we do our job. In our time together so far, we've discussed the seriousness of sexual assault and harassment within our military. We've discussed the Army's attempt to instill values within the soldiers that come into its ranks. And we've discussed the future that the Army Chaplain Corps could play in preventing this if leaders would allow them to do more morals and ethics types of training. Again, let us fully understand the problem of sexual assault and harassment within our Army. Let's acknowledge the good steps that we have been taking, and let us work towards installing a better plan of action through morals and ethics training in our Chaplain Corps to defeat this problem. Within the Christian faith, of course, we understand that God values sexual behavior. He values ethics. He values morality. He values how we live our lives. Job chapter 31, verses 9 through 12 says, "If my heart has been seduced by a woman, or if I have lusted for my neighbor's wife, then let my wife belong to another man. Let other men sleep with her. For lust is a shameful sin, a crime that should be punished. It is a fire that burns all the way to hell. It would wipe out everything I own." As we can see from Scripture, as I said before, God places a value on sexual morality, how we look at things, how we act, how we do things. And it's important for us to realize that if God values this about us and who we are, then it's important how we do those things, how we treat people, and so on and so forth. So much does God value this that Job, essentially in that passage there, just basically says, look, if all this stuff has happened, it's almost like I shouldn't have even had it in the first place. You might as well get rid of it. If we're not going to take care of it, we're not going to address the issue of sexual assault and harassment within that context and what God values, then what's the point of even having all this stuff? So in closing, I just want to say that in our attempt to end sexual assault through the vehicle of the Army Chaplain Corps, let us never forget that God does place a high value on sex in its current usage, and let us go boldly to make the changes that need to be made in the world, and all of this for the restoration